per ORS 192.610 to 192.690 and ORS 192.650. This meeting is being recorded. All right, this is the regular board meeting for the Clackamas Fire District 1 Board of Directors. Will now come to order. We already did that. The video recording of this meeting will be available on the Clackamas Fire website. Chief Charlton, are there any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. President. No changes, but I would like to note that both Nick Brown and Brandon Paxton are attending a City of Estacada meeting tonight to talk about lessons learned from the devastating Clackamas County wildfires. So they won't be in attendance for us tonight, but we thought it was really important to be with that strategic partner being the City of Estacada tonight. So that's where they are.
And will we get some kind of update on that soon on what happens there tonight?
Yes, absolutely. I believe tomorrow we have a joint oversight committee meeting. We'll ask to share that information with our joint oversight committee members and with the rest of the board. Okay, perfect. All right, did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments or changes we need to make to that?
No.
No.
Okay, being as though there's no changes or whatever, then we can approve the minutes as written by consensus. Public comment. I noticed there's a few people in the audience. If anybody has any public comment, please raise your hand and Rachel will allow you to speak, and we'll let you speak for 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Rachel, do you have anything?
No, Mr. President, right now I don't see anyone that has their hand raised.
Okay, we'll maybe just because of computer woes and Zoom meetings, we'll give people a few more seconds to figure that out, just in case they're having technical difficulties. Okay. All right, so looks like Chief Dieters has got a presentation for us for Operation Santa Claus. Mr. Dieter, Chief Dieters.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I believe Rachel will put that up. So we're just going to do a quick presentation about Operation Santa. We'll start out with how we did last year. So next slide, please. So, and I know you guys have seen this information before, but just a quick recap, just about 54,000 pounds of food was collected, just over 9,000 toys, 500 families served, or 2,177 citizens were helped last year through the project. Next slide, please. So obviously a little bit different this year. We are not doing the community parades as we traditionally did. We've opted for right now to do drive-through drop-off events, and we have them scheduled in the Beaver Creek, Logan area, Oregon City, the Clackamas Fire Training Center, Clackamas Town Center, Happy Valley and Damascus, and then Clackamas Fire Training Center again, and then Boring and Eagle Creek and Estacada, and then Milwaukee and Oak Grove. Until last week, we had, out of the 34 or so businesses that normally collect for us, we had about 20 of them that were willing to do it again. And then as of last week, with the changes in the freeze that we're going through, that's down to about 11 now, and we're making contact tomorrow just to make sure that those 11 will still want to participate. The food warehouse and the toy warehouse will be exactly as it was last year, with the toys being at Station 14, the food being in the back of the old training warehouse. And then the toy and food pickup day is still scheduled. We have reached out to Oregon Department of Health, and we haven't heard back yet, but just trying to get sort of some recommendations around, do we continue, do we not continue, are we okay with how we've proposed to do this? I think we'll be able to keep separation of some sort, but it all depends on sort of some of the recommendations. As it is right now, we plan to proceed with this, and we have Compassion in Action, which is the third-party administrator that gives us the family names. On Friday, in conjunction with the freeze and the governor's mandates that have come out, They have put a freeze on the accepting families. What they've done is they have moved them to a wait list. As of the 13th, we had 265 families for Clackamas Fire. Those 265 are still there, but there's been no one added to anybody's list so far. I think their intention is to ride out the entire 2 weeks and then decide, which may or may not be in time for us. We just don't know. We're kind of in limbo right now with how we're going to proceed, but these are the plans so far, and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Chief Dieters on Operation Santa Claus?
Yes, Steve,
Yes.
I'm not quite comprehending. What do you mean by this proposed drive-through drop-off? I mean, is it people coming by? You expect people to come by with stuff, or could you elaborate? Because I have had a few people on the Nextdoor app talked about this, and I told them there will be a this program, and then somebody said there is no drive-through. So I just want to find out, could you elaborate and explain to me a little bit? I don't quite understand.
Sure. So the plan that because we aren't going to do parades throughout the neighborhoods, we just can't socially distance, and we can't put the parades together that way. We decided that we would do a stationary or a static display and advertise the locations, and we'll have extended hours and see if people would bring the donations to us, and we'll collect them that way, much like during the wildfires when we set up the training center and people brought the donations to us. So in lieu of doing nothing, we thought we would try this, and then sort of the COVID rules are changing as we speak. So that is our plan right now.
Okay, so is this on our website for people to go and see where they can drop off?
It will be. Everything's ready to go. We're just kind of holding out to that last minute, which it will have to be this week, whether we commit to this or not. We can always pull back, but we will have the locations. I'm just waiting on one landlord right now to approve us being in their parking lot, because we've tried to pick locations that are easy to get to, larger areas like Clackamas Town Center and some other bigger, larger places like that. The Beaver Creek Logan one will be actually at Station 10. That's about the biggest and most easily found location out there. So that will be the only one that's at a station. And then Station 14 will be the east side for the Estacada, Eagle Creek, and Boring area. That's again, a location that people could find.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Chief Dieters? All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, business items. Let's see. Looks like we need to talk about the budget officer for the year of 2021-2022. Chief Charlton.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We bring this item before the board annually, and that is to ask the board to approve Finance Director Christina Day as our budget officer for next fiscal year. As the board knows, we will start as soon as this December, so next month, beginning to put together next fiscal year's budget. We want to have that budget officer in place. So happy to answer any questions, and we also have Christina on here if you have any specific questions for her.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Christina or Chief Charlton?
No.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve Christina Day as the budget officer for fiscal year 2021-2022?
So moved.
So sounds like Marilyn moved
Yes,
Don seconded.
I second.
and Don seconded the motion. Rachel, please call the roll.
Jim Searing,
Yes.
Thomas Joseph,
Yes.
Don Trotter,
Yes,
Jay Cross,
Yes.
Marilyn Wall.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you for that. Okay, now we need to talk about the Munis contract. So that is Shelby Hopkins gets to talk about that tonight.
Well, good evening, thank you. And you have before you the contract renewal for a 3-year contract. It will lock us in at a 3% increase each year over those 3 years, as opposed to a 5%, which as is written out in the report there, approximately 15,000 in savings over those 3 years. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So any questions or comments about the Munis system, you guys?
Hi, one Jay.
Yes, go ahead, Marlon.
Yeah, Director Hopkins, have you been pleased with the service that you get? And so that, you're not saving any money if you're not getting the service that you desire from the contractor.
Yes, absolutely. We upgraded to the most recent version of Munis back in May, and as with every upgrade, it did not come without challenge and a little frustration, which is very standard with all software programs, unfortunately. Munis did have, or Tyler Technologies as a whole, had a pretty large issue last month that affected non-hosted agencies. So we were not affected by their breach in security because we are hosted with them. But the unfortunate fallout for us was the service they were able to provide as they were dealing with that breach. And so we have had some delays in support and their ability to address some of the issues that we've had. And as with everything, you find one problem, they fix the one problem, and unfortunately can cause 5 other problems. So, we do have those hurdles that we go over, that we have to climb over. But all in all, I mean, it is doing what we want it to do in terms of a program. Finance is using it, and fleet and logistics. So is it doing what we want it to do? Yes. I wouldn't say that it comes without a headache, to be very honest, but unless anybody else has something to contribute to that comment.
Okay, Thomas, go ahead.
Shelby, I understand the product and the upgrade and all that. How is their customer support when we have problem? How is your response, and how quick are they responding to? That's, to me, very important.
Yeah, it is very important, and that's kind of what I was referring to before. Was there has been some challenges with their attention to our needs during, with support, and I do feel that a lot of that has stemmed from the security issues that they've been trying to deal with for more than just the Munis clients, because it is all of their other product suites as well that Tyler Technologies provides. So there have been struggles. I mean, that there's no way around that. Would I like it to be a little bit more responsive? Absolutely, because when something breaks, it's very frustrating to our people, which we can continue to address and bend their ear when things come up. I'm hopeful that it will get better as they've resolved some of the issues that they've experienced in the last month.
So the problems have been resolved quickly?
Yes and no. It just depends on what the issue is. Munis is such a comprehensive program, as an ERP that covers so many areas, and some issues are very hard to resolve, and it requires a major change on the back side of the program, and some are easy, quick fixes. It really just depends on the issue, and really. Okay. We have outstanding tickets and items that we've requested that have lasted months, but then we have some that are addressed in 10 minutes. So it really depends on the issue.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. I would probably surmise too that any software that's this big and comprehensive, probably, it doesn't matter which one you choose, they're all going to have similar struggles. So it is what it is. But Okay, any other comments anybody has for Shelby regarding the munis? Okay. Do I hear a motion to authorize the fire district to enter into a renewed 3-year contract with Tyler Technologies for Munis ERP hosted services in the amount of $125,695 with a 3% increase annually?
I so move.
Thomas moves. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Jim Searing seconds. Rachel, please call the roll.
Marilyn Wall,
Yes.
Jim Searing,
Yes.
Jay Cross,
Yes.
Don Trotter,
Yes.
Thomas Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So legislative update. Genoa, what do you have for us tonight?
Very brief, Mr. Chair. You've probably already seen in the news the shakeup that's going on in the House, the Oregon House of Representatives, where the speaker is being challenged from one of your very own legislators from Clackamas. So we are poised for some interesting happenings in December when they meet for legislative days. It is expected that those discussions about the Speaker of the House will take place at that time. Also, and stop me if I already said this, but I wanted to make sure that you're aware the last several legislative days and also the special sessions have received a great deal of criticism for lack of public involvement. And so the legislature is trying to figure out what to do as far as opening up the Capitol. And I think I mentioned that there was a team from OHSU that was going to come down and make an assessment. What I may not have let you know, and I want to make sure you know, is that legislators are talking about, under the Constitution, the legislature has to meet in mid-January in order to organize. The Constitution does not dictate what days the legislature is held, only the number of days that they're capped. So there is discussion right now about having legislators come in mid-January, organize, appoint their committees, et cetera, and then come back in April, where we hope either there's a vaccine or conditions may improve enough to allow people inside the Capitol and allow the public to again participate in our legislative process. I think that's really huge news. It's very innovative. It's an innovative approach, and as those discussions go forward, I will keep you posted.
Okay, thank you for that, Genoa. Thomas, do you have a question?
I didn't hear about that contesting the speaker from Clackamas County. Who?
Representative Janelle Bynum.
That's what I thought.
And it's interesting because she's receiving some support kind of across the board because she's a businesswoman, and she also has a strong social agenda. So there's an attraction there on several sides, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Obviously, we're nonpartisan. I mean, they're from the same party, but we are not obviously taking a position, but we will definitely be watching because it does impact.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if you take a position, we cannot do it. We don't.
Yeah, absolutely. But just to be clear that we're not expressing a preference either way.
Correct.
Any other comments for Genoa? Okay, great. Moving on. Other business items. So OB1, OB2, board committee and liaison reports. We'll start with the EMS committee. Chief Charlton has been corresponding with Director Joseph and I on a couple things with the ambulance service contract here recently. Chief Charlton, are you ready to talk about that at all at this point, or do we want to push that down the agenda?
No, happy to. So just for the board and those joining us this evening, we were notified by Clackamas County Public Health that they are looking to transform the current 5-year contract with American Medical Response for ambulance services in the county to a performance-based contract, and they want to take action on that as soon as this December. So we engaged with public health staff and asked if they would please provide more time so that we could have additional dialogue around really the transformation of the EMS system in Clackamas County, innovation, integration, all those things that we felt are important to ensuring that our working relationship as a first response agency, along with the private provider, the outcomes are the best that we can provide for those citizens that we serve. It didn't sound, at least as of today, that there has been much desire to come off of that timeline. So as of today, letters have been sent from the Clackamas County EMS Council asking for an extended timeline, from the ALS Consortium, which is Clackamas Fire, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and Lake Oswego Fire, from the excuse me, Clackamas Fire Defense Board, and also from the labor union. So again, asking the county to, well, first thanking them for engaging us, but more importantly, asking for more time to work through what a performance-based contract, or someone refer to it as an evergreen contract, could look like. So lots of work is going on there. When we did meet with the board EMS committee, I suggested that we may desire to have the board write a letter as well, asking the county to allow more time for these good conversations to take place and to not rush this. So,
Brad,
yes.
before, could you expand a little bit for the information of the rest of the board, that how much work our EMS committee and you have been doing on the same subject, so that all that work that has been done is going to be totally wasted? So could you expand on that?
Sure, thank you. So coming into May of 2019, the Board of County Commissioners awarded 5 additional years for the contract for service to American Medical Response. At that time, we approached Clackamas County Public Health and asked that we stand up a task force to look at a number of initiatives to help improve the EMS system. Currently, our own Battalion Chief Josh Santos chairs a task force that looks to really vet out and implement 11 strategic initiatives to help improve the performance of our EMS system. Our concern is that if this moves to a performance-based contract too quickly, that we won't have the performance measures in place to ensure that all of that good work can continue. Some of that work includes a complete review and overhaul of the ambulance service plan. Again, there's some big projects out there we feel are critically important to helping ensure we have a very healthy EMS system, and we're just afraid that if we lose momentum right now, we may lose momentum for a long, long time. So we're not saying don't change. We're just saying please allow more time for us to engage and collaborate on how to help support those changes if it comes to that.
Fellow board members, Jay, may I? Fellow board members, for your information, I think our EMS committee, George Santos and Fred and everybody has done so much work for the last year and a half on this particular area. For them to, the Board of County Commissioners, to ignore us, all the work we are progressing, and suddenly come up with a 1 month or 30-day notice for changes they are making without any respect for the amount of work our committees have done. So I am, Fred already mentioned, several of the affected agencies have sent a letter already. They already sent a letter?
Yes, they have.
Okay, so I am requesting our board send a strong letter and to the Board of County Commissioners how important it is to take time and listen to the experts on the field, particularly the major players of the Clackamas County is Clackamas Fire. And all this work and everything is done being totally set aside, making the decision in 30 days. So I urge you, any influence you have with the county commissioners, contact them directly. And I think we should jointly send a letter of expression of asking them to give time for us to give our input for this project without them making a decision.
So I'll chime in here real quick, Marilyn. I'll give you a chance. So just so you know that we did have this conversation, Director Joseph and Chief Charlton and I had that conversation about having a joint letter signed by the 5 of us sent to the county commissioners expressing some of the concerns that Director Joseph was just discussing. But that being said, that's one of the things I wanted to do tonight is get your input on how you felt about doing something like that. So go ahead, Director Wall, what's your comment?
What is the impetus for this to be slammed through so quickly when there's 4 years left on the contract? What's driving the county's agenda? The fact that 2 of the county commissioners are out of office in December?
That's a very good question. We asked the same question because we are about 17 months into a 60-month contract. Timing doesn't seem to be necessarily good, especially in light of being in a worldwide pandemic and just coming out of a natural disaster in Clackamas County. What we were told is that it is a priority for the Board of County Commissioners. So we are just engaging staff at this point, asking them to please pause, if you will, and allow up to 12 months for us to continue to work closely with our EMS partners. And then if there is a need to transform the contract into performance-based, then we've all had an opportunity to help create a better EMS system. So,
but the problem is we are in the stages of helping them to develop a performance evaluation. They don't even want to go through that. So any of the directors, I think this is from the elected officials level, we really got to go to high level. The 30,000 feet elevation level, we need to go and deal with these county commissioners and see how we can influence them to listen to the experts.
Any other directors have any comments or questions about this?
I agree exactly with what Thomas said, and I would support moving forward and doing whatever we need. So I know Jay and Thomas, you're on the committee and you are more in tune to it, and I'd support whatever your decision is.
Okay. Director Trotter, your comments?
Yeah, I think that the letter from the board would be excellent prior to the board doing anything personally.
Okay.
And Director Trotter and the rest of you guys, that was kind of what the conversation that we had with Chief Charlton, that we felt that the if we were able to all 5 agree on a statement, that would have some impact. We have no idea how much, but at least something. So Chief Charlton never done anything like this before, so I'm not sure how to proceed with that. What would be the next steps of drafting a letter like that and having us all sign that?
Sure. So on the board's behalf, staff would be happy to draft a letter. We will also include those 11 strategic initiatives and the progress that our EMS partners are making towards them. We would ask you to provide any and all input to the letter. And once that's completed, we can add signature blocks for you to sign, or we can figure out another electronic means in light of COVID. So we want to make sure that we provide you all the information so that you have those talking points, or just brings awareness to where we are with respect to helping transform the EMS system.
Yeah, and
I respect the opinion of Don. We should send the letter, but that should not stop us from contacting the individual. If any of you have any connections or influence with the county, we should reach out to them.
Yeah.
So I know that time is of the essence on this and probably shouldn't wait till the next board meeting.
No.
So how do we do this in a transparent and manner where we're doing this appropriately as a group? So because I don't think we want to wait till the next board meeting to sign this letter. So.
And the only suggestion I would have as staff is maybe the board delegates to the board EMS committee to review a letter for content and share the opinion of the fire district board, and then allow staff to draft the letter and allow you to review it, authorize it, and we'll send it out on your behalf.
I agree with Jay. The time is of essence. We got to do it as soon as possible.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm all for doing it timely, but also I want to make sure we do this transparent. We don't do this in any way where it could look like we were doing it behind closed doors at all. So I want to make sure we're doing this as open as possible, but I do want to do it timely. So, is that kind of consensus from everybody that we can? I don't know if we need a motion on that, but if we can get staff to draft that letter for us and move forward on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the committee's responsibility is to make a recommendation to the board to do it. And Marilyn has already said she concurs, and so do I.
Okay. Yeah.
And Jim too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
I agree with Don. The committee move forward with whatever you need, and I would support it 100%.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chief Charlton, do we need any kind of motion on that, or is consensus good enough for this this topic?
I don't believe so. I think by consensus, you've given staff direction to draft a letter. We'll have the board executive committee review it, and then we'll get that sent off to Clackamas County.
Okay, so that pretty much takes care of everything for the MS committee and executive committee reports that we've had for the last several weeks. So the next one is up is Director Trotter for Foundation report.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned at our last board meeting, the Wildfire Relief Fund, that's by donations, has been doing exceptionally well. We're now up to a total of $129,415. Since our last board meeting, we have spent another $32,625, which still leaves us $57,035 to spend. And the people are asking for it, and they are being responded to, and the amount of $1,500 for each response. I think it's a very great program, and I think the community has really responded well to the donations to support this program. The next board meeting is a Zoom meeting next week, so I'll have more to talk to you about next month.
Okay, super. Any questions for Director Trotter on that? Okay, next, Joint Oversight Committee. That's Director Trotter and Director Searing.
I can go first if you'd like.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
go for it, Jim.
We had our last Joint Oversight Committee meeting on November 5th last week. We went over the results of the election, and I think everyone knows by now the most recent election update was on the Clackamas side of the merger. 85,000 yeses, 29,000 noes. It was roughly 75-25. One interesting aspect of that, when you go back to 2016, 4 years ago on the boring election, the yes votes were 60,000. So now they were 85,000. More or less, because of probably more population, the boring voters were part of the election this time. So probably shows that 75-ish percentage or so of the boring electors now voted yes, and with the voter turnout a little higher. So on the Estacada side, it was roughly a 60-40 no, 4,400 no votes versus 2,700 yes votes, and those are the most recent numbers. The Estacada directors had a work session last week on November 12th. It was about a 3-hour meeting where they heard and took feedback from quite a number of citizens, city council members from Estacada, and stakeholders. And we now have another Joint Oversight Committee meeting scheduled for tomorrow. I just saw that announcement come out today. So at this point, the Estacada directors, what they shared with us at our last meeting, and I'm sure we'll probably talk more tomorrow, is they're evaluating their options. They're seeking input from their citizens and other stakeholders and trying to identify a path where they're going forward. They do have a document that has been shared now called a continuity plan. Prior to January 1st, before the contract for service started, they had, in essence, a consultant that helped chief, the temporary chief that they had, put together a plan that does have some information in it about if they choose to go autonomous, then how can they get there? It does have some financial data in it too, that's similar to the feasibility study and similar to the matrix study that they did that shows the difficulty of that. But in the end, really the ball's in their court, more to follow, as they're, in my opinion, doing a pretty good job trying to seek input and evaluate what their options are. So that's all I have. Director Trotter, anything else to add?
I think that's very good. The only thing I'd add is that if anybody's interested in seeing their continuity of service plan, which was prepared in December 2019, it is now on their website. You can go there and see it and read it if you choose to do so. And it'll be interesting to talk about several things tomorrow at our meeting.
Okay. Any board members have any questions for Director Searing or Director Trotter on joint oversight? Okay. Next on the agenda is board informational updates and comments. Chief Charlton, I'm going to let you talk about the COVID stuff, but also wanted to let you know I had a meeting today with the Dr. Dew and the other physicians and leaders of the medical and EMS community from Multnomah County today, and it was very, there was a few things in there that was very educational. So I'll probably share my information when you're done with your COVID update. Oh, Director Joseph, do you have a comment? You're muted, Thomas. Muted, Thomas. Still muted, Thomas.
Okay, I'm sorry, you missed me because I was muted. I didn't realize. I wanted to ask Jim and Dawn, now that he's failed in plain English, what's next step?
Well, I think really that they're trying to identify what that means. They have a number of options, quite a number, and until they hear, they're working really hard and diligently to hear from their citizens. The meeting the other night, like I mentioned, was 3 hours. I watched the whole thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of people calling in, a lot of input, and I think at this point, really, they're doing their best to gather feedback, input, hear from people, and the next steps would be, once they identify what those next steps are, they'll come forward to us and we'll sort of try to work through the plan. No matter what, if they try to go back to being autonomous, there's quite a few things that we're going to have to do to work together to get them there. If they choose another avenue, there's quite a few things we're going to have to do to work together to get there. So no matter what option they choose, there's a long list of things that we're both going to have to do to work together to get there. So we don't really know yet.
Yeah.
So end of the day, we are waiting for their approaching us. We are just waiting back.
We're waiting for till we have the joint meetings and talk more about what's happening. One of the things that came up at the workshop that was mentioned several times is, assuming they decided not to continue with the contract, but wanted to provide the same services, it would increase their budget. And they're going to try to figure out how much would that cost their taxpayers so they can present that kind of information. So they're really looking at various options as to what could happen.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I concur with Director Trotter. There was quite a bit of discussion just about the finances. The finances aren't really a secret. They did the matrix study, the feasibility study that showed that they don't have the ability to provide even 3-person staffing. I mean, everyone knows they can only do 2. They tried to do 3, 60% of the time. So the numbers, I think, if to try to do 3-person staffing and or 4-person staffing would require a levy. One of the directors talked about, well, what does that mean? How much? Would it be 75 cents per thousand? As you know, quite a number of departments around us, including Tualatin Valley, Canby Fire District, have staffing levies that have to be passed every 5 years. So I think, again, talking about options, that's one of their options. So if they chose to go that route, then what does that mean? How much? When could they do that? So there's quite a bit really for them to figure out. And I think they're doing a good job trying to do it as quick as they can. But, we're in this time crunch. When we put this together, we put an election in November with a contract that ended June 30th, where normally in our past history, the contracts for services that we did were always 3 to 5 years. So even when we went for elections, there wasn't this time crunch like we put ourselves in, but we did that. But prior, there was always a window of opportunity where it wasn't such a rush, but they're doing as good as they can right now, I think, to try to come up with what they can in a timely manner. But we're in a time crunch, so it's a little bit more rushed and a little bit more quick than what probably is preferable. But does that help, Thomas?
No, not quite, just quite. But contractual agreement, are we still on the hook to provide them the service until a solution is found?
Until June 30th.
I'm sorry?
Until June 30th.
Oh, until June 30th. Okay.
Then we'd have to decide what to do next.
Okay.
Yeah, the current contract for service expires on June 30th. When we put the contract for service that just began a few months ago in January, we decided to only do an 18-month contract for service, much shorter. It's the shortest one we've ever put together in our history. Generally, they were 3 years at a minimum, 3 to 5 years is normal.
Yeah.
But we did an 18-month contract, and I guess maybe Dawn can help me. I don't know why we did it that short. I guess it was because we thought, well, the election's in November. What's the sense in expanding it much past that? It was a short contract that expires, so we're continuing to do what we're doing until June 30th.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Director Steering, on that, part of the reason that and I'm sure Chief Charlton has more information than I can remember, but I think part of the reason that we chose a little bit shorter, well, first of all, I think we had contract for services with Estacada, maybe on operational services, but other contracts that dated prior to that 18 months ago. But the other one was there were many lessons learned from boring and other legal integrations that we've done over the years. And I think that a lot of that was, staff time. There was a lot of staff pressure that gets put on this, and over multiple years, that puts a lot of pressure on staff. And so part of that was, allowing staff to have other things to do. But I'm sure the Chief Charlton could probably remember there was a few other reasons, I believe, why we chose to not extend the contract as long as we had done other contracts. So do you have any comments on that, Chief Charlton, or am I blindsiding you too much?
No, I think to your point, we did find quite a bit of success and a lot of efficiencies working in the contract for service with Boring District, Fire District number 59. And I think that was a 5-month contract, and we moved a little faster to legal integration just because we saw the need to expand services. So yeah, I would agree. I think some of it is a little bit of some positive lessons learned from Boring. And then also just a timing factor, meaning you have the vote for legal integration, and then you have a sunset out there, or you have options based on whatever that looks like. So.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? I'll look really hard this time so I don't miss somebody that's muted. Okay, Chief Charlton, you're up with our COVID update, and anything else you have to share?
Sure, just a couple things around COVID-19. As you know, the governor rolled out a 2-week pause for Clackamas County, followed up by a 2-week freeze across the state. So that freeze begins on November 18th. It runs to December 2nd. So on top of that, as of today, Oregon OSHA rolled out its temporary rules around the precautions and conditions that employers and employees need to address to ensure a healthy workforce in light of a worldwide pandemic. So as staff, we're working through those changes from OSHA. We're also working through now what the freeze will mean. We're also looking this week to hold a safety stand down and spend a number of days organizationally focusing or refocusing on COVID to ensure that everyone stays healthy and the community that we serve is healthy as well. So a lot of changes have happened, I'd say, in the last 4 days. Staff is working incredibly hard to work through those changes and make sure we meet the intent of OSHA, the Oregon Health Authority, all of us here at the fire district, the communities we serve, and the governor's executive order. So a lot of changes are coming at us, but I'm proud to say that we're doing everything we can to keep everyone healthy.
So I'll take my turn at informational items, just to reflect a meeting that I had today in Multnomah County. The Mercer is saying that they've got an inoculation or a treatment for COVID that could be released as early as the back half of December or right after the first of the year, and they're saying that it's 95% effective. What's coming out of the folks at the federal level and certainly at the local level in Multnomah County is that inoculation is going to be offered to medical workers and EMS workers and police and fire, so public safety first. It won't be mandated, but it will be offered to those people first. So now the question comes out, Dr. Jew asked all of us in the room today if he's willing to take it, who else in the room is willing to take the inoculation, if it could be, especially if it comes sometime before Christmas. My question for him was, it was kind of an obvious question, but the question was, if you're inoculated, do you still have to wear a mask and all the rest of the stuff? And the answer is obviously still yes. There will be no changes in anything that you do on a day-to-day basis. But they said it is only right at this point supposed to be 95% effective, whichever that means. So anyway, that is a real thing. If you see that in the news or whatever, they are making good progress on that. So you could see people taking a chance here by the end of the year of an inoculation against the virus. So anyway, more to come, I'm sure, but that's all I had to update on that. Any other board members have any informational items that they'd just like to share with us about anything at all that has to do with the fire district?
I want to congratulate Josh Gerke on his first marathon, and accidentally he ended up running a marathon. So I want to congratulate him on that.
Thank you, Director Joseph. That was very nice.
Do you want to explain what happened?
Yes, I'll explain. I was really going to support my sister in Chicago, and at the beginning I said, hey, I'll run with you for a little while, and then at the end I'll run again and just get the front and the back half, because I really didn't want to run that much. And then before I knew it, we had run a long ways, and then you get so far into it, there's this investment piece, and you're like, well, gosh, I shouldn't stop now. And before I knew it, it was 19 miles in and she broke her foot. So I hadn't broken anything yet. So I said, well, I'll finish it for you. So I finished it. Now, it took a long time. It was not a record, that's for sure, but I survived.
Well done.
Thank you, Thomas.
Any other directors have anything? Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a board president what do I call it, liberty here, I think. And I'm going to jump a little bit ahead to the first letter in your correspondence packet. So if you guys want to open to that, great. If not, I'm going to read it aloud. This is to Clackamas County Fire District 1, attention Board of Directors. October 29th, 2020. Dear Directors Trotter, Cross, Joseph, Wall, and Searing, I am writing to express my highest degree of admiration, respect, and thanks to the men and women of Clackamas Fire District 1, Estacada Rural Fire Protection District, Colton Rural Fire District, Malala Rural Fire Protection District, Canby Fire Department, and other local fire agencies who supported and coordinated response for their unparalleled heroism and sacrifice in the immediate days following the start of the Riverside and North Clackamas Complex fires on Labor Day. I specifically would like to express my sincere gratitude for your fire chief, Chief Fred Charlton, who also served as the Fire Defense Board chief during this time. The conflagration threat that erupted in Clackamas County following this historic event of September 7th, 2020 put literally tens of thousands of Clackamas County residents and their property in harm's way. In less than 3 days, the Riverside fire grew to more than 100,000 acres, forecasting numerous evacuations, orders for affected communities in Clackamas County during the events. We saw multiple wildfires grow from our northern and southern borders with critically low resources in the state. Chief Charlton, responsible for protection of Clackamas County, worked around the clock with state and local surrounding areas to bring resources to protect life and property. His work and the work of the neighboring fire chiefs during the first 72 hours was instrumental in saving lives and property at the time when the county needed it most. With hundreds of local resources deployed in Clackamas and one of the largest incidents in the state, there were only 2 minor injuries reported to responders and no injuries to civilians were reported. What's more, Charlton's strong relationship with the community and his ability to bring the resources to support the incident strengthened the coordinated response. His role as Fire Defense Board chief is to organize mutual aid and serve as a liaison to the state. Throughout the event, he remained calm and unwavering. He navigated the challenges with all the immense amount of leadership as he worked with the state and local agencies to bring resources and uniformity to the incident management team. These were perhaps the most challenging times that we've faced in the Oregon Fire Service. Resources across the state were drawn to levels never seen, with more than 100 local agencies in the state, with over 300 agencies contributing resources to support conflagration resources statewide. Teams came from Clackamas, Multnomah, Clatsop, Marion, Yamhill, Umatilla, Baker, Union, and Washington counties. This on top of ODF, Washington, DNR, Clackamas County, Oregon Transportation, PGE, BLM, United States Forest Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, National Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the Type 1 Southwest Incident Management Team. Every partner played a role helping our local fire service partners who were there on the ground throughout these difficult days. Thank you for all of your leadership during this historically challenging time. It takes all aspects of government to create synergy, and the leadership shown by your district, your board and your chiefs, the chiefs to move forward. I also greatly appreciate Chief Charlton's continued senior roles in Oregon Fire Chiefs Board as a larger leadership role in the entire Oregon Fire Service. Sincerely, Mariana Reyes Temple, State Fire Marshal. So I wanted you guys all to hear that for the record, other than just reading it in your board packet. So thank you for allowing me that liberty to read that. And Chief Charlton, well done, you and your staff once again. Strong work. So
thank you, President Cross, and really it's the men and women of Clackamas Fire and your leadership as a board that helped us get through these devastating wildfires. So thank you for those comments.
Okay, any more board informational items? All righty, I'm going to find where I'm at on my agenda here. We are at division and departmental reports. So Office of the Fire Chief.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the board. Just a few items. First, we've talked about the accreditation site visit that is set to take place December 14th through the 18th. As I had mentioned, we typically have a team of 5. This year, we're scheduled to have a team of 3. Now, Division Chief Brian Stewart is working with the team to find out if they will even be coming on site. So we may have either a hybrid or a virtual only assessment this year based on COVID and a number of the restrictions that are in place. So I'm sure Chief Stewart will talk a little bit about that during his report. Also, we reported about 2 weeks ago, we received about $3 million in tax receipts. This last Friday, received over $7 million, and that's ahead of November 15th. So tax receipts or tax revenue is beginning to come in. And I'm sure if you have any detailed questions, Finance Director Day can answer those, but we're watching cash flow right now as we begin to receive tax revenue. And then also we'll be working on an updated community letter. This is a letter that articulates our position around COVID-19. We also want to share the updated plan around the 2020 Op Santa with the community. So a lot of work going on, but I feel like a lot of it's already been covered tonight. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on Chief Charlton's report? Okay. Business Service Division, Chief Whiteley.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. My report is as submitted with just a couple things to note. One of my roles for the organization is Chief Examiner for Civil Service Testing. So I did want to advise the board, there are several vacancies coming up in the next several months for the commissioners. 3 of the 5 spots will be coming vacant by February. Knowing that, I just wanted to make the board aware that in December we'll be publicly posting those positions in the paper for the openings, and then with a closing in early January. Therefore, we'll be bringing information to this board late January. If you recall, last time we had vacancies, we had 3 applicants and only 2 positions available, which therefore we created an interview process. I'd anticipate we do a similar process this time, even if we don't get an excess of applicants. I think it's a great way to establish an understanding of the candidates, but also start to build a relationship between the commission and the board moving forward. So I'll keep the board informed of that as we move forward with that process, but please anticipate more information really coming at that January board meeting. If you look through the agenda, you will notice a change under support services. This was effective a few weeks ago. Division Chief Michael Carlson has taken the role of support services, which Chief Nick Brown filled previously. So you'll be hearing from Chief Michael Carlson here shortly. Did I say Corliss? I might have said Corliss, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies on that. So, and the other piece there is just to note, I believe Trish Noble is on, and she also had some information to share as well.
Okay. Before we go to Trish, does anybody have any questions or comment for Chief Whiteley?
I had one. Hey, Doug.
Yes, sir.
When I was talking with you the other day, you mentioned the chief examiner position is coming up as well. So is that going to be advertised at the same time as those civil service commission positions too? Or will that be a separate process with a different timeline?
It'll be a separate process. Thank you for bringing that up. I had a chance to glance, and it was it's a little further out. I thought it was July, but I believe it's more of an October timeline from when I stepped into that role. And if anybody recalls, historically, that didn't have a term on the chief examiner. Recognizing the importance of open it up and keep process moving forward with the direction of legal counsel, we set the chief examiner position to be a 4-year term. So I believe later this coming year in 2021, I believe probably later spring, we will be starting to post for that to fill it. But so to answer your question, that will be a separate process. If you look at ORS for chief examiner positions, that it's open. Historically, it's always been a district employee, though that's not a requirement through ORS. So that is open to external as well. When I filled the role, we did publicly post that for several months through several different papers, and at that time I was the only applicant.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, sir.
Any other questions for Chief Whiteley? Okay, Director Noble, you had some comments?
Yes, I was asked to just give a brief update tonight about the fire chief application process. So as of today, we have had 2 applications submitted with the anticipation that there will be more. The application cutoff is the 22nd on midnight. So Sunday and midnight is when those applications are due. And then on November 23rd, the applications are going to be reviewed. And the next step in the process is going to be stakeholder presentations, for which December 14th to the 18th has been set aside for that. So just 2 now, anticipating more. That's it.
Okay, great. Any questions for Director Noble? Director Christina Day is up to talk about the financial services next, but also if anybody had any questions about the tax revenue that's coming in too, this may be an opportunity to talk to Director Day about. But Director, did anybody have any questions about that for Director Day? Okay. Go ahead, Director Day. Do you have any comments for us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. My report is as submitted. And just to note, our audit field work starts today, although it's not really field work because we're doing it all remotely. So this week we'll be busy with the audit and be ready to present those results to you in December.
Very good. Okay, any questions or comments for Director Day? Okay, great. What do we have here? We have Chief Michael Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I did not write the report. It was submitted by Chief Brown, but I do submit it respectfully, and I will be prepared next month and excited to present. Thank you for your time.
Welcome to doing other people's work, huh? Yeah, that's all right.
It's fun.
Any questions for Chief Carlson? Nope. Okay, good enough. All right, Chief Brian Stewart, Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. The report's as submitted. I did want to highlight a few items. We'll start off with accreditation. Chief Charlton mentioned it earlier, and we're currently slated to have what they're terming a virtual, or excuse me, a hybrid site visit. So our team currently exists of 4 members, one who would be attending virtually the week of the 7th. That allows her to, she'd be with us the week ahead, which allows her to have any follow-up items that might need to be done on site, to have the remaining members of the team conduct that the week of the 14th. However, with the changes with the pause, the freeze, and some of the other travel restrictions or requests of the governor, such as the 14-day quarantine, I'll be reaching out to our team leader tomorrow to see what his comfort is and what options are out there. Looking at a memo I have in front of me from the Center for Public Safety Excellence, we may only request a virtual site visit based on excessive budget reductions due to pandemic fallout or travel restrictions as determined by state and or local authorities. So they certainly have the ability to flex some team members from around the country to come here. But if we have restrictions on our side, we may not be able to do it. So we'll be following up with that tomorrow. Otherwise, accreditation seems to be on track. Last week, we submitted for the AFGS, or the supplemental grant for COVID reimbursements. That was really an effort led by Chiefs Yerke and Carlson to get that done. And then you will see in your board packet, I put a little chart in there of the grants that we submitted in the spring. We just got the rejection letters last month. And you can see kind of the competition that we were, I guess, up against, or how the funding went. In particular, if you look at the SAFER grant, they had $1 billion in requests. And this is one, excuse me, where they had significant number of changes where they got rid of the supplementation restriction, or you could actually rededicate funds that, or fill positions that you'd already had funding for, depending on circumstance. They also got rid of the match. And instead of awarding the estimated 300 awards, they only awarded 127. So a significant reduction, much further than I expected. I expected them to be around the 200 award mark, but so that's just there for your information. And then a few other small pieces. I shouldn't say small by any means, but we got UVC lights. So these are decon lights that Sean Olson and Greg Ramirez worked on researching, and they finally came in. I believe they ordered them a few months ago, but because of backstock or back ordering, we're finally getting those. So they're going to be working with Fleet to get those installed into our ambulances, or the medics. Also want to commend a work group on working through some stuff with job forms. So just as we're transitioning from Adobe forms that we had used previously to, we've been using job forms at a smaller level. We looked at MS forms and how we could do that. but they did a great job of bringing that package together, which is going to gain us a lot of efficiencies. And through their research and work, they found that we're able to use jot forms for some particular pieces in terms of burn permitting and potential pieces for following up on plan review through jot forms at a much lower cost than like adding on a functional unit within Munis. And then also want to highlight Troy Lynn and the call board. We did the re-implementation for TeleStaff this month, so it went to cloud hosted services. And as Shelby mentioned earlier in her presentation, there's always hiccups along the way with any software implementation. But from my perspective, this went about as smooth as it possibly could. And that has to do with the work that Troy Lynn put in, that data services put in, and then that the crews down there at Station 7 really put in. So those are my highlights. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Chief Stewart? Okay, great, thank you. Emergency Services Division, does Chief Charlton or Chief Yerke get this one?
For this one, we will move to Chief Joshua Yerke.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. You have the report from the medical services departments, but I'd like to highlight some of the work that has already been touched on a little bit by the board EMS committee and Chief Charlton. But Chief Santos, as Chief Charlton mentioned, chairs the ASA Strategic Plan Task Force, and they were tasked or started by the EMS committee, the EMS council, excuse me. But they had been planning this work for the change to the ASA to happen over the course of years, and now that is just weeks. And I guess what I want to highlight is this, is that Chief Santos and really everybody in the EMS team, but Chief Santos and Captain Verkest have really stepped up and been advocates for our system and rallied stakeholders and partners to really put forth some good work, and it's been post haste. And I just wanted to applaud that work, and I mean tireless work. They've really been working hard on that, trying to make things better. The other thing I'd like to highlight is community paramedic Amy Jo Cook. She's been selected to speak at a drug abuse and heroin summit due to her work in Project Hope, and that's quite the honor. Past speakers at that event have been up to and including the president. So pretty awesome work there. And then in addition to that, she's received a Lines of Life grant totaling $19,500 for her work in Project Hope as well. So that's pretty exciting. There's a grant pending through the University of Baltimore. We'll find out about that soon, but that'll be in the amount of, potentially in the amount of $40,000 to cover a quarter FTE. And then the last couple things from the work that she's been doing, she's helped OHA streamline some vaccination clinics for other agencies that have community paramedics, and they've really leaned on her expertise. And so I think that's just another example of us leading, and when we lead with our people, we do great things. Lastly, she's got a vaccination clinic in East County on December 2nd and the 9th. So she's just doing great work. Out of wellness, I want to just applaud Director Goodrich and her team for the tremendous flexibility they've had trying to get through OC Health in the midst of this pause, and then later it will be a freeze or both, and just all the flexibility they've had to show with those changes. She's also done an amazing job keeping us up to date with the OHA, the OSHA guidelines and the CDC guidelines for our COVID response. And so great work there. And then lastly, from wellness, and really Director Goodrich, she has been committed over many years educating our new recruits on behavioral health and stayed committed to that endeavor. And she taught this last month, and I just appreciate her work in that area. So thank you, Heather. On to training. Chief Kenna and her team have been working really hard to clean up DPSST certification process. And in addition to that, our probationary task books from firefighter all the way up through BC And that's great because those were in desperate need of just being cleaned up. And so I applaud them for diving into that work. In addition to that, the Volunteer and Career Academy, in the midst of this COVID environment, they've just done a great job of keeping them safe, keeping things going. Chief Kenna entered into a partnership with Portland Fire to provide live fire events, and it's just really stepped up and done a great job with both of those things. And in general, I'd just like to say thank you to the training division for all the work that or training department for all the work that they're doing. So thank you. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Any questions for Chief Yerke? Okay, thank you for that, Chief.
Thanks.
Well, do we have a report from Chief Brown at all?
Mr. President, members of the board, we do have Battalion Chief Brent Olson, who is the operations assistant. If you do have any questions or if there's anything that Brent would like to fill the board in with.
No, good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. The report is as submitted by Chief Brown. I will do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Chief Olson?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chief Olson.
Thank you.
Volunteer Services, Battalion Chief Dieters again.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. The drills for the suppression group for October were hose handling, ventilation, and forcible entry. EMS was trauma case review through the MAT training, which is the multi-agency training. And that we did participate, both the career and volunteer, in the Estacada Community Watch Parade. That they just participated in a thank you parade to the community. All COVID compliant, masks, all that, never got out, just part of the parade. Explorers have not yet returned as of yet. We did renew the charter, although we don't have the Explorers here right now. But in anticipation of bringing them back and adding to that group as we normally would in January. So the station coverage, Station 12 was seven nights out of 31 for duty shift. Station 13 was 5 out of 31. Station 18 was 31 out of 31, and 4 of those were 24-hour shifts. And then Station 333 was 8 of 31. And then rehab and water tender were 20 out of 31 nights. Personnel changes, volunteer Jeremy Austin got a work promotion that he couldn't say no to, so we wish him the best of luck. He resigned from the program. And then volunteer firefighter paramedic Noah Smith was, he resigned. He was hired at Mid-Columbia Fire and started there a few weeks ago. And as Chief Yerke alluded, the academies are still going for suppression and support. Those are heading into their final month or so. Hopefully they don't take a pause, and the training continues to do the great work of training all those folks and keeping everything going. I'm happy to answer any questions before I turn it over to Kirk.
Any questions for Chief Dieters? Okay. Volunteer Association report from President Hambley.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First of all, I apologize if you hear some screaming in the background. I have a 5-month-old that has been boycotting bedtime for about an hour. Last month, we had 2 donation requests that were approved, both in the amount of for $1,000. One to the TIPS program for their October fundraiser, and one to the Oregon Impacts December fundraiser, Merry and Bright. Tammy Owen takes lead of those. She builds gift baskets to be auctioned off for those fundraisers. And then lastly, we received, the Volunteer Association received a letter from the desk of the fire chief acknowledging and thanking the association for their role in the Clackamas fires in September. This was distributed to the association and very much appreciated. I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions for President Hambley? Okay, I'm just going to review the anything going on here in the chat, see if there's anything we need to respond to. Let's see. Okay, I see. Doesn't look like there's anything in the chat that needs to, that we need to address. So let's see, correspondence. Any comments on the correspondence? Looks like there's quite a bit in here this month, which is wonderful. So, okay, great. And anything else anybody has to comment or ask about before we adjourn for the month?
Mr. President, if I could, one of our traditions at the fire district is anytime that we have a board member that has a birthday, we have a cake. Well, this month we do have a board member having a birthday, and that's Don Trotter. Unfortunately, we don't have a cake for you. So hopefully you enjoy your birthday. Happy birthday, Don.
Happy birthday, Don.
Happy birthday, Don.
Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting year. And I'm looking forward to moving forward.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we'll have to have a cake when we'll have to have 2 cakes next time we can all get together. So, okay.
I do have one thing, if I may, Jay.
Yes, sir.
In the informational items, if you notice, the Estacada News is listed there in the informational item on our board packet. You go to our board website and go to the board agenda, you can then click on that and read their comprehensive plan and that article also.
Oh, well, thank you for pointing that out. So that's good. Okay. Anything else, anybody? Okay. It is now 1916. Without hearing any more comments, the meeting will now be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.